I'd like to share some statistics. Indiana ranks 21st in the nation on human trafficking reports. And according to National Human Trafficking Hotline, in the year of 2021, 467 signals were received by the hotline from Indiana, and out of which 153 were victims or survivors of human trafficking. And they were identified according to various venues, for example, pornography, residence-based commercial sex, hotel, motel-based, illicit massage parlors and spa businesses, escort services, and even agricultural and farms.
What I want to focus on today in my conversation is a little bit more of what we see in terms of the youth that we serve. We don't serve adults. We serve, like I said, ages 13 to 18 typically. Our emergency shelter does serve a different age range, usually more younger to a slightly older, but still around the same ending age there. So one of the things that I really try to always focus on whenever I go out and speak is to really help an understanding of who are the traffickers, because we can talk all day long about human trafficking and what human trafficking is, but we have to focus on who are the people that are doing this so that we, as all of us here, know how to help those that are vulnerable in our lives, or to be able to, even ourselves, spot something, say something, right? So, sorry this is a little muddy, but essentially if you look here, right, you look and you see that 36% of the reported traffickers, exploiters, are actually family. 27% are boyfriends. And then about 14% are friends. And so when I look at this wheel, and sometimes going back and look at this wheel, and you see the blue, the pink, red, maroon, and then the yellow, green, that takes up the majority of that wheel, doesn't it? Isn't that astounding? It's astounding to me that the people that we should trust the most in our lives sometimes are the people that lead us into this. And so I like to also go back to 14% are employers, and then 9%, only 9% are what we most commonly are on alert for, which is the stranger abduction. It's like the movie Taken, right? Or other things that you've seen, is 9%. So if we want to look at this wheel and we think, man, over 3/4 of the folks that I should trust are the ones that are actually going to lead me to this, or could be leading someone to it. And it's not to be suspicious or anything of our own family or friends, right? But it's to be aware that this is how grooming exists and how it works. You talked a little bit about that earlier, is that the grooming really works best through relationships of trust, which is what makes this so hard and so difficult. I like to throw up some of these things just to kind of help you guys see. So this is from our friends at Polaris Project. And this is where all the calls from the National Trafficking Hotline, they've kind of put this on a grid to show us. So the red spots are higher frequency of calls. And then your like blue and your yellows, right? Like kind of goes in a, blue is like the lowest number of calls all the way up to red, right? So where are we at? You may know. It's hard to see on this map, isn't it? Yeah, we're in the red. Some of that is you'll notice too, is that you see the calls kind of along interstate lines and those types of things, because there is a transport feature to trafficking. A lot of times they are transported from major cities. I have had kids kind of bounce around the kind of 4 to 5 state area around to the major cities, and so you see a lot of calls through those bigger cities, for sure. So this is one that's kind of focused just on Indiana, again, and some of the surrounding states, but again, you kind of see it a little bit more. But I think it's interesting because right where we're at is a huge red dot. And so I just think that really is important for us to all be aware of the signs and what to look for, which is why I'm so grateful to be here today, why I'm so grateful to have all of you here listening to what human trafficking is, because I do believe we're all that power of one, right? We're all that person that can see something to say statistics. So we went through a little bit of this earlier, but I wanted to just kind of highlight a couple of things. Is that chronically truant, homeless, runaway youth, as I said, is largely one of our biggest red flags that we see. An example of like the goods and services to kind of look out for: expensive shoes, name brand purses, bags, clothing, manicures, lashes. We see a lot of kids with substance abuse disorders. So a lot of times they'll be provided substances in exchange for exploitive acts, excessive amounts of cash. Anytime that they are basically stating that they're older than they are. We talked about the signs of branding in terms of jewelry and tattoos. We also see a lot of like roses and money signs, daddy, that type of thing in the tattoos. Again, they're usually in a place where you can it's really hard to cover them up. I've seen them on like faces, hands, chest. Those are all pretty common places. A lot of scripted information, doesn't kind of know where they are, seems to have a story that doesn't quite add up. That's something for sure. And then we talked a little bit about the psychological signs, bruising, those types of things to look out for. Traffickers do use social media pretty regularly. They can use things such as roadblocks or Snapchat, those types of things. I'm old, I say, so I'm not great at understanding the new technology all the time. But a lot of times, Instagram, those types of things are huge in terms of taking, meeting these people and then taking it offline. So I always leave with kind of a thought of what can you do, because I think it's incredibly important to know what we can do. And first things first is educate yourself. So you guys are already here educating yourself. So now you know more, so you'll be able to do more, right? And so there's some government and other organizations that are really great places to start research, as well as the ones that were provided earlier. A lot of this is raising awareness, advocate for change, really supporting survivors, hearing their stories, not pushing for their stories, believing them, helping them kind of live that life after rescue. Be a responsible consumer. A lot of goods and services, there's this website, responsiblesourcingtool.org, that you can enter, and it'll tell you if what you're purchasing, where you purchased it from, is ethically, they know that they're not using exploitive practices. Report. If you see something, say something. Here's some other, so prevent trafficking with your own and your children and youth in your own lives. I imagine all of you can name a couple of kids in your own life that you see. It doesn't have to be family. It can be your neighbors. It can be kids here at church. It can be other people. We all have connections, right? We all have kids we know. We all have teenagers we know. Be curious with them. Live a life where they feel safe coming to you. Set expectations for what safety looks like. In my house, computers and game systems, they don't go in bedrooms because I want it right there. I want to see what my kids are on. I have younger kids. All of my kids are under the age of 11, but my husband and I have talked through, when, if ever, do we allow them to have that in their own rooms, and monitoring of cell phones, getting cell phones that will alert you if there are things that are potentially dangerous. There's so much technology out there to help us with that. Social media and online presence, making sure that you're aware of what your kids are doing online. You're aware of if something doesn't feel right to them, what are the rules around that? Who do they go to? How do they safely report it? We have to sometimes step back, and a lot of times anger comes with feeling scared. And I know that with my own children. And so I have to sometimes step back, and I have to remind myself if I get angry right now, they may shut down and not come to me next time. I need to be curious. I need to hear what's going on. Be the one. Be committed to being that one person in a kid's life so that you can help prevent trafficking. You can see something, you can say something. But also, it doesn't just prevent trafficking, it prevents a whole lot of other things as well in terms of abuse and neglect, making sure that there's a safe place to land. A lot of people who talk through suicidal ideation say, well, it was this one person that I knew that if I called, they would answer, and I couldn't leave behind. Be that one. Here are some other additional resources for you. The Indiana Child Abuse and Neglect Hotline is listed. If you believe there's imminent harm, please don't interfere. Call 911. They're trained. They know how to manage it because a lot of times these trafficking circles are very, very dangerous. And we wouldn't want any of you getting involved to the level where you end up getting hurt. And then also here's the National Human Trafficking Hotline, as well as their website. They also have a texting service for those who are in active trafficking. And so a lot of times if you text help, that'll alert them that this is somebody who is in active trafficking and may not have the resources to call. So it's a great resource for those who are being exploited.
My name is Olivia, and I'm a former resident of Bashor.
Broken down and tired.
I was just drinking all the time and smoking weed and being around this older man that I should not have been around, and he was doing really bad things to me. life was pretty rough back then.
And I rise up, I rise like the day, I rise up.
How I felt when I first arrived, I was devastated. I did not want to be here at all. But when I was leaving, like, I was excited to leave, but I was sad to go because this program really did help me a lot, and the people around are just amazing. They helped me get on the right track and realize where my life was going and what changes I needed to make, and they made me become really self-aware, why I was using the things that I used and what other directions I could take out my emotions into instead of like drug abuse. And they also helped me like build relationships with my parents and how to keep it by using different sets of skills with communication and stuff like that. They didn't really try to pressure you to change your life ways. They like listened and understood, but they did tell you the consequences and how you needed to be better. And they're really supportive and they're not mean or anything. And it's just a lot different from the people outside the world who like tell you need to suck up your emotions and your problems. They actually sit here and listen and support you.
And I rise up, I rise like the day.
They really taught me that, like, at the end of the day, I make my own decisions, and it's up to me to change my lifestyles. And that really put in perspective that I needed to change. I'm really thankful for the people here at Bashor who helped me get to the place that I am in my life, and I'm thankful for this program. If Bashor didn't exist, I would probably still be in the same predicaments I was before I came to Bashor. Not a very good spot in life.
All we need is hope. And for that we have each other. And for that we have each
My hopes for the future, I really want to be in the military and pay off my car and be successful in life.
I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again.